right, and good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, maybe today internet won't break and I actually get to stay on with you for the duration of the show. They're not even that long, and I don't know what happens. We are super early. It's not even 7 o'clock in the morning. It's still actually dark outside, but we're ready to rock and roll because A, I have a lot of things to do. B, we got a lot to talk about. C, this is really important information that you need to have today and right now. I do want to welcome everybody who is watching this live super, super early. And hey, if you're brand new, subscribe, notification, and thumbs up if you enjoy what you are seeing. If you are listening this on any of the broadcasting services, welcome. Super excited that you are here and welcome to another episode. If you're liking it, hey, do subscribe and share with friends. So today we're going to be talking about all kinds of cool ways to make money. So there's a lot of changes that have happened within the law or are being proposed to be changed within the law. There's a lot of movement that is happening in many different markets, in many different industries, if you would. And today we're going to be covering a bunch of those different things. It's going to be a packed show with many things, crypto related, non-crypto related, business related, investment related, money related. All of it is going to be about how we can actually benefit from what's happening right now to what's going to actually mean in the future, and how do you position yourself today to benefit massively. Hey, I'm super excited to do this, so let's do this. All right. Well, hopefully you had your coffee because I definitely have had mine, as you can tell. So, what is going on? What is happening? What am I so excited about that I have to do it super early and see how late we go? Well, there's a lot of different bills that are being passed. And one of those things is the House is passing a historic bill to end federal marijuana prohibition here in the United States. This is actually quite huge. This was passed in the House on Friday. And what it's going to do is actually going to expunge many cannabis related convictions, which is going to be probably like millions of people by this date. But the part that is actually very interesting, that the federal prohibition is also going to allow businesses involved with marijuana to be able to actually get banking, because up until this point it was sort of like weird because you could do it with the state but couldn't do it federally, you couldn't cross the state, so there was all these different really weird laws. That this particular thing does have a potential to actually put the marijuana based businesses and health related businesses with like I was going to call it CBDC, but that's crypto stuff. CB CBD, CB, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. So, anyways, they're going to do the other piece that they're going to do is they're going to impose a 5% sale tax on marijuana and marijuana based products. This is something that I have said should have been done in eons ago, and clearly government doesn't really listen to me, and do their own thing. Additional pieces that I think it's also important. So we have some good news, not so good news. Store closing. Francesca's filed for bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, and they're planning to close 140 stores. So this is a women's boutique chain, and they have voluntarily filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, and they have joined things like Guitar Center, New York and Company, J.C. Penney, Steinmart, Sur La Table. I mean, right? You get it. Retail, still bad, still not good. And even though there are some great places where one could potentially invest in businesses, I do think it's a good idea to avoid businesses that are in bankruptcy proceedings, because you just never know. It's too high of a risk and the reward is not all that good. There are better places where you can actually, the risk reward ratio is much better. And we're going to talk about some of those today. But one of the things that is also interesting to note is that this also affects you if you're a real estate investor and you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe I want to invest in commercial properties, which, hey, there's good times to be able to invest in that stuff. Be very careful if you are looking to invest in malls. I know that there's a lot of things out there pushing folks in it, and there are many syndicators out there recruiting folks to say, hey, come on in over here. We're a commercial real estate investment company, and you bring in 50,000, 100,000, $1 million or whatever, and we're gonna do this together. Be very, very careful, because sometimes, I'm not saying every business is doing that, but sometimes businesses do that so that they can actually get themselves out of the hot water. Now, speaking of the businesses and real estate, we do have news that I want to share with you, and that is about a company moving, and they're moving to Indianapolis. So let's take a listen for just a moment.
Families in the West Indianapolis neighborhood have waited nearly a decade for the news they received Friday morning. A major company, Elanco Animal Health, is moving into the former General Motors stamping plant.
Driving by the plant every single day is a sad.
So this is where it's going to be happening in Indy. So if you are a real estate investor, they are moving into Western Indianapolis. Indy actually is a pretty darn good market when it comes to real estate. I don't know about commercial real estate, but real estate as a whole, because they're moving in, they're trying to bring in many jobs. They're actually going to revive the plant, and part of their development here of what they're buying and what they're building is going to be actually create some of the outdoor dining and shopping on the other side of the river. So there is a good potential. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. Everything is a risk, but of course you want to do the risk reward piece. What you want to do is kind of think through, does it make sense somewhere around that area in West Indy to potentially purchase a home or an investment property, shall I say, and see if you can actually rebuild it. You're going to probably have to wait for a few years for the price to appreciate there, but this should be a great up and coming neighborhood to potentially invest in. Speaking of real estate investment and where to go next, Atlanta is another spot that I think would be a hot place where you can go and potentially make some mad money. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is promoting an affordable housing plan that would rezone many of the city's single-family housing neighborhoods to allow for greater density. So what she's actually proposing is, she's saying, look, our city is growing. We need to create more affordable housing. We don't have as many housing because everything is single family. She's proposing to change single family into potential multifamily, and instead of basically leveling the things on and building this giant building structures to keep the sort of a feel of the town and the neighborhood, what she's saying is that she would allow for additions to be built onto the houses. So perhaps using a basement as another apartment, perhaps adding on something in a back as another apartment, or building on top, or using things, so being able to split it in a very interesting way. This could be a great way for single family owners to potentially go in, and all of a sudden, instead of a single family unit, now you have a potential duplex or maybe even triplex that you can get in. And the cool part is you still qualify for the traditional residential investment kind of thing, right? So you don't have to deal with like a commercial investing and borrowing of the money, although it is much simpler to borrow money for a commercial than it is for residential. I know it's really weird. However, you do get much better rates and terms if you invest as residential. Part of the thing to also consider if you are a real estate investor or thinking about being a real estate investor is that you would actually be maximum, the amount of loans that you can get on a property is going to be 10. But if you're married, then you can split it between you and your spouse. So that would mean 20 for the family unit as a whole. Now, on the business side of things, U.S. states is adding China's SMIC and CNOOC to defense back list. They are basically saying they no longer will allow for U.S. citizens and investors to be buying the firm's securities from the late next year. So if you own any of these stocks, you definitely want to get out. Of course, where are people investing? Well, they're going into India. They are pouring all of their money from China actually into India, and that is where money is going in. So perhaps something for you to think about when you're thinking about emerging markets. China is old news, India is new news. Something for you to think through. Speaking of India, their central bank keeps interest rates unchanged as inflation remains high. So they are actually keeping their overnight bank lending rate at 4%. Have you heard of 4%? If you're living in Europe or US, you were like, 4%? What? We're not used to that. We like zeros and negatives, man. Whoo, 4%. However, Indian rupee does remain largely unchanged. However, it did strengthen against the US dollar, meaning that the dollar is cheaper now in India to buy and own. However, their inflation rate is a bit on the higher end. I want to say it's about 7%. And India's central bank target rate is about 2 to 6%. So they have given themselves a bit of a room to actually be able to move. Speaking of all of these different things, I think it's time to take a look at what's happening in the stock market. And in the stock market, well, a quarter of stock market is having a record high and closing even higher. And on Friday, we were zooming super high. Let me see if I can zoom this in. Speaking of zooming, let's zoom. The U.S. stocks were zooming high on Friday. Equity market on track to finish the day at record closing highs on the same day for the first time since 2018. Now, of course, this is very, very exciting, and at the same time, it's also very scary. But why is everybody excited? Well, that's because vaccines are coming. Although we are getting now news saying, well, hold your horses because the first few rounds may not be enough. But some of the investors and some of the individuals are also wondering, will I have to be vaccinated? And what I was able to find is two different stories. One is coming from UK and one is coming from US. So we're going to go to the UK story where we're going to find out, hey, do I have to vaccinate? Let's hear it.
Some are asking, do I have to be vaccinated? Well, let's be absolutely clear. The answer in the UK is no.
I strongly urge people to take up the vaccine, but it is no part of our culture or our ambition in this country to make vaccines mandatory. That's not how.
So there you go. No mandatory vaccines in the UK, but the question is, will they do it in US? And from what we're able to find out is also, will you be required to be vaccinated by your employer? Most of us, many of us have a job, and right now we might be working remotely, and some of us are going to stay remote, some of us are going to be required to go back in, and some of us are going back in already, right? So there's no option to be remote, but the question is, can an employer require you to get a COVID-19 vaccine? And so here is what we were able to uncover. Employers do have to abide by federal and state laws, but so far there's not a strong appetite for a federal COVID-19 vaccine mandate. And this is coming from Dr. Fauci, which you may like, you may hate. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm just going to share what he had said. Quote, "We don't want to be mandating from the federal government to the general population. However, it is known that states and cities have mandated vaccines in the past, and so there is a potential that they will do it again. Again, even the federal government didn't mandate anybody to get locked down, but the local governments have. Thus, most of us are stuck at home now, 24/7. Now, we do have an employment attorney, Donna Ballman, said that employers probably can mandate a COVID-19 vaccine with exceptions. If you are at will employee, which most people are, employers can say, yes, provide proof that you've been vaccinated or you're fired, or you cannot come in, or you have to work remotely. And for some of us that are working remotely, that can work remotely, maybe that is an option. But for those that have to show up, that might not be an option. Of course, a global health law professor at Georgetown University said he could foresee a number of employers requiring staff to get COVID-19 vaccine. So one of the things that also know is that once you mandate, it's very possible that you have to pay people for the time to go and get it. And it's going to be more complicated than just signing a memo and saying it's time to get vaccinated. Now, there is some news coming from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that says that employees with disabilities cover the American with Disabilities Act, and those that are whose religious beliefs are protected under the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act may be entitled to an exemption, but of course nothing is quite certain. Other agencies like OSHA, for example, they did not say what they will do or state or require, and CDC for once didn't have anything to say because CDC is more involved in housing than in the health component of the thing. But now it's time to actually switch into my favorite topic, because I did promise at the beginning of the show that we're going to be able to talk about and we're going to be discussing what is going to be happening of how do we in the future position ourselves to make money. So we did talk a little bit about be careful, stocks are at the all-time high. Could they go higher? Absolutely. Is there some red flags? Absolutely. Are they overvalued? Yes, they are. So you want to be careful over there. Bonds are pretty cool, but there's some problem because you don't get as much of a return, and the 10-year Treasury has been tickling on up. So maybe not. Who knows? Gold, of course, is one of the options. However, gold has lost money over the last month, but it does still stand to potentially do really well in the upcoming year or years. It is not quite certain. Everything is a guess at best. We did talk about the ways to potentially get yourself aligned when the companies are moving places, of how you can actually do that, play that to your benefit when it comes to real estate investing. But one of my favorite assets right now, and probably will be for a few years to come, is because of the risk reward ratio, has to do with cryptocurrencies. So the question comes in, well, how have Americans been buying Bitcoin? And one of the interesting things that is coming actually from this article is that we have seen, and kind of touched upon it yesterday, that a massive flow of coin to North America is coming from East Asia. So way back when we were going in and seeing all these crazy numbers, it was actually Asian countries that were highly participating, or individuals in Asian countries. Let's be very correct about who was participating. And it was countries like China and Japan and South Korea. They were really big on digital currencies and jumping into crypto and that kind of stuff. Well, that has actually shifted, and now we have gone from the Asia to North America, and North American users have jumped over 7,000 times this year. Now, this is really good news and very exciting. Now, the article over here that say that the change is being driven by increasing appetite for Bitcoin amongst bigger US investors, which I agree with, who are attracted by tightening oversight of the American crypto industry. Well, this is the part that I don't necessarily agree with. I don't know that they're attracted by tightening oversight. I think they're being attracted by the funny money that is being created, not just in the US, but around the world, especially in the Western cultures, where we're just printing money and creating it and doing all these like weirdo stuff that is devaluing every single currency that we have. And it's also making it impossible to value stock market and companies and kind of what's going on, because even the things that is trashed right now is being supported, and that is highly problematic. What I think is happening is that the funny money is part of the number one reason. The number two reason why we're seeing more US consumers actually jumping into the North American exchanges and providers is because there's this whole weird thing happening with US and China, like we just talked about a few minutes ago. So many of the Chinese exchanges don't want anything to do with the US consumers, because they don't want to have to deal with the regulations and with the with paying the fines and dealing with all of that stuff. So now you can actually see, if you're actively going out there and looking for even the ICOs or the rollouts or pre-sales and that kind of stuff, when you go in, it will say if you are from US, you are not allowed to participate. So they're actively saying, we don't want you here. And it's nothing against you, if we're being completely honest. It has probably more to do with the government. Now, we did cover what's going on with real estate. Well, we did talk about real estate as well a little bit, but we did talk about what's going on with crypto. Let's take a quick look at the market, and then we're going to look at some of the very bullish news, because what you're going to see over here is going to be like, I don't know how I feel about this now. Bitcoin right now is trading at $19.18. 19. Let's try this again. Bitcoin is currently trading at $19,018.59, and it is up about 0.5% for 24 hours. And it's kind of basically doing this whole flirting between about 19,200, 18,700, and so that's kind of where we are in this sort of sideways moving channel. And it's not very exciting, I get it, but this is very good for the asset class and for the market. So be excited that that's what's happening, and of course it gives a great potential buying opportunity. Now, of course, I do have to say, I apologize for saying this every single time, but I also don't want to get myself in trouble. Nothing that I say is financial advice, legal advice, or accounting advice, and should not be used as such. All right, we covered that. ETH is trading currently at $589.55, slightly down about 0.3% for 24 hours. And again, it kind of goes in and hits a little bit of the low 600. It comes back into the mid 500s, 570 or something like that. So it's again going in the range, which is actually very, very good. The rest of the market is, again, when we kind of look at it, sort of like up and down. Predominantly, it's the sideways market. On the biggest gainer stuff, EGLD is up 12.9%, Sushi 10.5%, Nexo 7.5%, Theta 7.3%, XEM 7.2%, and then we get into the fours and below. On the losing end of things, nothing too bad. Near is probably the biggest loser at 8.5%. And then we have Rune at 4.7, and then Kyber Network KNC at negative 3.9. So again, it's mostly sideways market, nothing too exciting except for the news and what's happening with the market that is poising us to actually grow. Now, one of the things that when I deal with companies and leaders and kind of we talk about financial strategies, I always talk about the fact of like you cannot be always growing ad nauseum. It's not healthy. It's not right. Like even when you look at a child, right, when they're growing and they try to sort of like really spurt on up, all of a sudden, 4 or 5 inches or 10 centimeters in one summer, it's highly problematic because that person has all kinds of problems for the rest of their life because the body just cannot adjust. It's not normal. It's not natural. So of course you want to grow, you want to pause. You want to grow, you want to pause. So you really want to have this like step side kind of thing that is happening, and that is where we are right now with the crypto markets. Anything that goes up severely, big time, it's really, really bad thing, and it's time to kind of get out when you see that happening. But right now, that's not where we are. So here's really exciting and bullish news that are happening. Grayscale buys almost 140 million dollars in Bitcoin in 24 hours, and I've actually seen the little drawing. I don't think it has it over here, but I did see the little bit of drawing and stuff of like how much is actually being minted versus how much is being bought just by Grayscale. That is not to account for Square or PayPal or anything like that. So Grayscale is getting in and buying mad amount of Bitcoin. Now, of course, they're not the only one. MicroStrategy just announced yesterday, I believe, that they have purchased even more Bitcoin. They actually purchased additional $50 million for their treasury. So, of course, as they're making money, they're going to continue. I don't know that for a fact. Michael Saylor doesn't hang out with me on a daily basis, right? But I would presume, based off of what I have seen, that is what's going to happen. Of course, we did hear that Real Vision is in. The CEO of Real Vision is actually 100% in. Spotify is actually getting into the crypto space, if you can believe it. Remember the podcast, which some of you are listening this show on, and music and that kind of stuff? Well, they're getting into the crypto, and they're actually listing a new job of looking for associate director to help with internal crypto efforts. So they're actually looking to create some crypto payments on their own platform and develop stuff with it. So as I said, this is definitely growing, incredibly bullish. This is the future of the money. And I don't know why people are just not understanding it, but I guess they're going to wait until Bitcoin does hit $1 million per coin, and then everybody's going to want to get in, which is not when the money is made. It's kind of like investing in a business. The biggest investment return that you can get is when you invest in a super young business, right? Then it's series A, B, C, right? It's pre-IPO. It's, once it gets listed, once it gets into the IPO, once it gets into the public, once everybody gets a hand, sure, you can still win, but you're not going to get these insane gains that you see somewhere else, right? So that's kind of where we are right now. Crypto is in the pre-IPO stages, which, we're going now. We've gone from the angel round into the rounds, like the seed A, B, C, D, as more people are coming in and it keeps growing into it, right? So just something to think about and think differently. New fund is exposing Canada's traditional investors to Ethereum. So 3IQ has received approval from Canadian regulators for the Ether Fund, which is grayscale like investment in the growth of Ethereum, and it's going to be in Canada, available for Canadian investors. And once we actually start seeing more and more of these funds coming in, and I feel like on daily basis now I find these things and I talk about these things, well, what happens is that we actually are going to be seeing more and more of these things coming in, which means that retirement funds are going to start actually implementing this, and that's gazillion dollars worth of money that is going to be starting coming in. Of course, British politician Nigel Farage says Bitcoin is the ultimate anti-lockdown investment. And of course, you know that the Britain is going through the whole Brexit piece, and he actually did. He's the leader of the Brexit party as well, and he was basically saying, "Hey, Bitcoin is the ultimate anti-lockdown investment. You got to get into it." He actually published it in his little newspaper, or it's not newspaper. It's like the news report, the whatever, like the email list. I don't know what you call it. And what he's saying is that Bitcoin is becoming incredibly popular. Everybody should be putting in some money of some investment into it. And he's saying that the reason it's popular is because governments are, through this pandemic, creating vast amounts of funny money, the basing currencies, and people are scared about what this means for their money and their investment. And of course they are, and so of course they're looking for different ways to preserve their wealth. And is saying that it could be crucially important that you get your mind around crypto and what it means. Already fortunes have been made and lost on this. I am beginning to understand that in terms of the future, this stuff is really, really important. And it is incredibly important, and you should be definitely investing into it right now. And with the whole Brexit, and there's a lot of complications over there, I'm actually surprised that not more individuals are jumping into crypto in the UK, but they will. Just like we were talking about Turkey not that long ago, and Turkey is experiencing huge financial crisis on their hands. They're having a bit of a runoff inflation that is happening, and more of their citizens are actually getting into gold. So gold is in the shortage over there. And we also did cover on the show right here that the Turkish central bank is actually selling gold reserves in order to be able to actually acquire dollars. And this is one of the places that I think is very well poised. Whether they will adopt it or not, whether they will be first or not, I don't know that. But it is poised incredibly well to become one of the first countries to actually start utilizing something like Bitcoin for their central bank treasury. And so we'll see if that is going to happen. I truly believe that there will be a country that is going to roll out. It's not going to be US, I can tell you that much. It's probably not even going to be UK or anywhere in Europe. I could see an African country, I could see Latin American country, I could see a place like Turkey, for example. Who knows? Venezuela has been mining and minting and doing all this stuff with crypto. So for all I know, they could be the first ones to roll out. Only time will tell. I really don't know who it's going to be, but I do truly, sincerely believe that there will be somebody. Now, of course, speaking of people changing minds and more people jumping on board, we have yet another $631 billion assets under management individual saying, I was wrong and Bitcoin is right. So here we go. I've changed my mind on Bitcoin. Market strategist, asset manager, and long-term critic of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, Inigo Fraser Jenkins, said he has changed his mind on Bitcoin status as an asset on November 30th, 2020. He actually said he now considers Bitcoin as an asset that investors should have in their portfolio. And he is specifically reported it over there. He also said that Bitcoin has emerged as an attractive investment option, which could be meaningful given the current circumstances. And in my humble opinion, this is Nev speaking, not Mr. Jenkins. This is Nev speaking. In my humble opinion, it's for also the financial reset that is coming. Remember, they did call for Bretton Woods 2.0. They will be resetting everything, and I think it's important to get your money into something a little bit different. The greater role that the governments will likely play in economies make cryptos potentially more appealing. And of course, it depends on kind of how they play and what they end up doing. And additional piece that he also says that is making Bitcoin very appealing is the Bitcoin's reduced volatility over the years. And as more of what I like to call sticky money, which is this large investor money that is coming in, as we get more of the sticky money, the volatility of Bitcoin is going to actually start smoothing out, and it's not going to be nearly as volatile, which is going to make it a perfect treasury for most people. Of course, that is not going to happen right now. That is not short term. This is a longer term period. For right now, it still has a potential to be a bit more volatile, but that volatility will start going down. And then, of course, the early bird will get the worm, or the early investor will make quite a bit of money. Now, talking about the governments and laws and so on, there is a new defense bill that is being actually rolled out, and it's rolled out every single year. And it's different this year in one regard, and that is that U.S. lawmakers are mentioning digital currencies in their annual bill. So U.S. Congress is finishing up its negotiations surrounding the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, for the 2021 fiscal year. Bill's final draft contains the improving laundering laws and increasing comprehensive information tracking of criminal activity in Shell Holding Act. And of course, it does broaden the definition of coins and currency to include digital currency being used for illicit activities. So it's very interesting right now that we have one law that says, well, Bitcoin is actually a property, right? Cryptocurrency is a property. I'm going to treat it and tax it as such. But now we have a new bill. Again, it's not signed yet. It still has to go for all of the approvals and signatures and everything else. But they're saying, well, crypto is currency. And then, of course, the IRS says, well, it's a property if you buy it and hold it and kind of exchange it. But if you get paid into it, then it's an income-based thing, and then you have to file that kind of taxation. So they're still trying to figure out what the heck crypto even is. Of course, President Trump did say that he will veto the defense bill unless it strikes Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which protects tech companies like Facebook and Twitter from being held liable for what their users post on their networks. So that's one thing that is still being talked about and negotiated and discussed, and it's going to be very interesting. And to finish today's episode, I do have a bit of funny. It's not meant to be funny. This is coming from Yahoo Finance, and it's supposed to be sort of a very good sort of 12 ideas to boost your income starting this weekend. And they kind of have written this article that talks about, hey, how do you boost your income? So I actually think it's kind of funny because some of the stuff they mentioned, I'm like, really? Is that like that's the best you got? So I think it further proves that you gotta get yourself out of the traditional media, and Yahoo Finance I consider traditional media because you get something a little bit different. Because most of these folks that write, Shane Murphy, for example, I obviously don't know this person, but most of the individuals, and I don't know if Shane is or not, they're just write articles. They're paid to sort of go out there, scour the internet, and just copy paste something else. You put in your own spin and you roll it out. There is no experience or education or knowledge or anything like that behind it. So of course he's saying, well, get a payday from your old playthings, and basically going out there, finding some of the collectibles and being able to sell them. Cool. It could be a good way to declutter if you want to and collect some money. There are some definite things that could be worth a lot of money. Stop paying too much for car insurance. Okay, great. Yeah, shop around. I think everybody knows that. Hey, save every time you shop online by downloading this free browser extension that will automatically find you deals and coupon codes every time you shop online. And I think it's very cool, but what it also does is actually prompts you to shop. Maybe you should shop less. And hey, while you're thinking about shopping, why not actually look for an extension such as Lolly, for example, that rewards you in Bitcoin when you buy? Crazy thought, putting it out there. Going after your unclaimed money. Really? Like this is the information that they give individuals as financial advice, as financial education to go out there. No wonder so many of us are struggling financially. Go after your unclaimed money. Okay, cool. Yes, fine. Find a better price on home insurance. Okay, yeah. I mean, shop around for insurance. Cool. I think you should be doing that anyways on annual basis. Just take a look. Make your debt cost less costly. Go basically and refinance your loans, or take out the debt consolidation loan, and then of course borrow up to this without collateral at for this amount of money. And I think that that's a good idea. Consolidating the debt, paying it off, all of those things that do make sense. But again, that's one of the things that kind of mentioned that I'm like, all right, I could see this. Play the market with free stock. So they're basically talking about the popular investing app, and that many of the individuals on YouTube are actually shelling as well, where you can go and sign up, and then you get a free stock, and I think that that's great. But again, stocks are highly overpriced in my humble opinion, and you're better off going out there and buying yourself some crypto. But hey, nobody gets paid to advertise that. Get paid in business, behave badly. Great. Yes, let us all pray that somebody's going to be really, really bad, so that there is going to be a class action lawsuit. Yes, let's teach the nation that the only way that you can get yourself paid and make some money is by suing somebody. Amazing. Hey, thanks, Yahoo Finance. But yeah, so they're saying, hey, when they do it wrong, and they do it wrong all the time, you should jump on these lawsuits, and that is how you should be making money. Okay, cool. Thanks for the advice. I think this is grossly wrong. Again, I mean, cool. If you were wrong, then you deserve to be paid. Fine. But to put that as a financial education advice of how you can actually boost your income, that is horrible, in my personal and humble opinion. Number 9, invest your spare change and get $10 free. Another easy way to start investing in the stock market is by putting your spare change to work. Again, investing in a stock market. This is part of the problem, and I do have a big problem with this whole thing, so I'm going to go on my little rampage. Please forgive me for that, or maybe don't forgive me at all. But I struggle so badly that the only thing that we are being taught that you could invest in ever is a flippin' stock market. It is absolutely not true. Stock market is just one of many asset classes and ways where you can go and invest money, and it's probably one of the worst ways to go and make money. And I know that I'm probably going to get slammed by saying this from many different people, but you know what? Not only is the stock market itself manipulated, the businesses can actually manipulate. They can buy their own stock, they can actually change their own sort of statements and financial stuff, and all these different things that makes it incredibly high risk, super low reward, and it makes absolutely no sense to it. You can go in there, you can make money, but I will tell you, the only people that make money in the stock market are actual insiders of the stock market. General population has never been able to become incredibly financially independent and successful on the stock market. It is super rare. You, if you're lucky, can potentially retire and do okay, but that's about it. Vast majority of individuals, when they have actually amassed great amount of wealth, had to do, and this is for majority, right? There are always outliers everywhere, right? There are outliers in every single asset class, every single market, but vast majority of investors that they have made and sustained their wealth are in real estate, number one, and number two, the newly emerging market in crypto. So why in the world everybody's only pushing stocks is because that's the only thing that they have heard. Okay, so I think if one thing that we can all agree on potentially, or get something out of this today's episode, is to consider that there is something different than just stock markets to be able to invest in. But of course, there's an app that offers micro investing accounts, and of course you download it and you buy a coffee, and then the rest over kind of goes into this account. This is something that many different companies have done. There's many different apps that do it. There's even your bank that probably offers this whole thing, that every time you swipe for a cup of coffee, the remaining change goes into your saving account, and over time it's going to accumulate. Yes, it will. You just need to invest intelligently in something different, and not be passive investor just falling for stupid stuff like these things. And hey, if you're going to put in the spare change, yeah, go for it. But they're like, get $10 free. Okay, cool, $10. What you can buy a cup of coffee, maybe 2 cup of coffees, and if you go to the gas station, maybe you can buy like 5 or 10 cup of coffees for that dollar. So turn your clutter into cash. So you can take your clutter, and apparently there is a online service that declutter, and it's spelled DECLUTTR, and they pay up to 33% more than other buyback program. Plus, it was super easy to use, where you just basically scan the products, you box it in, and you ship it to them. And it's kind of like if you'll remember a few years back, there was the whole like, sell your gold to us kind of thing, and then you would go in and just like, sort of ship your broken chains or whatever thing in, and then they sell you some stuff at the deeply discount piece. So of course they can do that. Better yet, you can always just go out there and maybe donate it to folks in it. Shrink your student loan debts. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. But of course, they're saying that you need to refinance it. And I think refinancing loans, it does make sense to do it. Of course, looking to borrow less might make more sense. But I also know that many individuals right now are sitting on the sidelines and saying, I'm waiting for the new president to come in, because he promised that we won't have to pay for these darn things, and he's going to roll them off. So many people are waiting on that stuff. And then, of course, number 12 is make your hobby your new side gig. And, they're saying, hey, figure out of how you can actually take something that you really like and make it into the side gig. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. It's actually one of the better ideas in the entire article. So there you go. This is the news for today. This is the information for today. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you have learned something new. If you are brand new, do sign up if you'd like to get news like this. I promise I don't always go bananas and get upset about certain things, but it does get very interesting at times, I won't lie. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay forever money blessed, and do remember, you are